If you've been diving into Neverness to Everness, you already know how much impact the right character can have on your overall team performance. Today we're focusing on Fadia, and more specifically, the best build and team comp for her. She's one of those characters that feels solid right out of the gate, but once you actually start fine-tuning her build and pairing her with the right teammates, she really starts to show what she's capable of. Fadia is mainly a support character, but she's not your typical passive healer or buffer. What makes her stand out is her ability to redirect incoming damage back to enemies, which adds a really interesting layer of survivability and pressure at the same time. In the right setup, she keeps your team safe while still letting your main damage dealers go all in. So in this video, we're breaking down exactly how to build her properly and which team compositions make her shine the most. I'm quickly
A very small portion of the audience is subscribed to the channel.
If you enjoy these types of list videos,
please don't forget to subscribe if you like these types of videos.
Enjoy watching.
Thanks.
Fadia is one of those support characters in Neverness to Everness who feels simple at first, but really starts to shine once you understand how her kit actually works. She is a psyche-based fighter who uses synthesis-based arcs, and her main strength comes from absorbing incoming damage and redirecting it back at enemies. So instead of just standing in the back and passively healing or buffing, she actually plays a more reactive role where timing and positioning matter a lot. When it comes to the best build and team composition for Fadia, the goal is to lean fully into that damage redirection identity. Focused arcs and consoles that boost her survivability and improve how much damage she can absorb are key. She is not the type of support who carries a team alone, but when you pair her with teammates who can fully take advantage of the Esper element synergy, she suddenly becomes much more impactful. There are technically stronger supports in the game, but in the right setup, Fadia holds her ground really well and can completely shift the flow of a fight. Fadia's kit in Neverness to Everness is actually way more layered than it looks at first glance, and it all revolves around one core idea: taking damage and turning it into pressure. Her basic attack, Wordless Rejection, hits up to 5 times with psyche damage, which already gives her a consistent offensive presence even though she is classified as a support. Things get more interesting with All Eyes on Me, because this is where her entire identity starts to show. As long as Fadia has more than 1 HP, she can redirect a portion of incoming damage from herself or teammates. But the moment she drops to exactly 1 HP, that mechanic flips completely, and instead of redirecting, the damage gets distributed across surviving teammates. It creates this really risky but controlled defensive loop. Her Falling Contempt attack adds another layer, letting her perform a plunging strike that scales damage based on full distance up to 100%. It is not just a mobility trick, it is actually a high impact area damage tool that rewards positioning and timing. Then you have Evasion Trigger, which ties her critical dodge into her offense. After a perfect dodge, if you use Wordless Rejection immediately, she dashes forward and hits the target while also heavily reducing their break gauge. This turns her defensive play into an aggressive counter system. Her skill Existence is where things start to feel dangerous for enemies. It deals wide area psyche damage and applies destructive experience to the enemy with the highest maximum HP in the area. That debuff is important because it sets up her damage reflection mechanics in a much more punishing way. Destructive experience itself is what makes her reflect system scary. Any redirected damage gets doubled based on what Fadia receives, capped at 8% of her maximum HP, so enemies are basically punished harder the more they try to pressure her or her team. Her ultimate, Agony to Euphoria, shifts her into a special Lilith state date. In this form, she deals mental damage, heals herself, and upgrades Wordless Rejection into a multi-hit follow-up that adds 5 extra attacks before ending the state. It turns her from a reactive support into a burst-oriented threat. If things get messy during Lilith's state and she loses enough HP to trigger Destructive Threshold, she gets an instant recovery that boosts both her self-healing and her damage output even further. It is basically a comeback mechanic built directly into her core gameplay loop. Her support abilities also add a lot of utility outside of combat flow. Outsider gives a wide area psyche damage option, while Furnace of Guilt creates a team-wide HP drain and a recovery effect when enemies are affected by Nova, scaling with Fadia's base HP and capped for balance. Finally, Queen Charming and Denial and Plunder round out her support identity. One gives her special interactions in City Typhoon, while the other increases everyone's maximum HP by 10% when she is in the party. Altogether, Fadia is not just a defensive support, she is more like a damage converter who turns survival into offensive momentum. When it comes to the best arc for Fadia in Neverness to Everness, Eternal Waltz is basically her signature style option. It boosts her entire gameplay loop by increasing her mental damage after casting her ultimate by 10% for 10 seconds, while also giving her a solid 20% max HP increase. On top of that, the arc itself already provides a huge 41.25% max HP stat boost, which directly improves her survivability and makes her damage redirection mechanics much more reliable. For her secondary arc, the good, the bad, the bitter fits perfectly into her tank support identity. Whenever Fadia takes damage, she gains a defense increase of 26% for 10 seconds with a cooldown of 20 seconds between triggers. This makes her much harder to burst down during intense fights. Combined with an additional 25% max HP increase, it further pushes her into a durable frontline support role that can safely absorb pressure for the team. For console cartridges, Tiny Big Adventure is the best option for her overall scaling. The 2-piece bonus increases her max HP by 10%, while the 4-piece effect lets her stack up to 40% additional max HP simply by taking damage. Even better, casting her ultimate instantly gives her all 10 stacks, meaning she can immediately spike her survivability and synergy with her damage reflection and healing mechanics. This makes her significantly stronger in longer fights where her HP scaling directly translates into both sustain and counter pressure. When building the best team for Fadia in Neverness to Everness, the goal is to fully support her psyche-focused kit with strong chaos synergy and consistent Esper cycle execution. The strongest setup currently is Fadia, Daffodil, Sakiri, and Nanali. In this composition, Daffodil plays a key role as the chaos-focused enabler, allowing Fadia to fully maximize her kit interactions. Since Fadia scales best when her team can consistently trigger and extend Esper cycles, Daffodil becomes almost mandatory for optimal performance. Sakiri is another extremely important piece in this team because she helps push the rotation beyond a standard cycle into a more advanced triple cycle setup. This is where the team really starts to snowball, as Sakiri enhances the overall flow and lets the group maintain constant pressure. Nanali then fills the final slot as a reliable damage dealer who can also participate in Esper cycle execution alongside Sakiri, ensuring that the team is not just supportive but also consistently outputting high damage. For a free-to-play friendly version, you can still build around Fadia effectively with Fadia, Esper Zero, Mint, and Adler. While you lose access to a dedicated chaos-focused core, this setup compensates with more flexible synergy and easier accessibility. Esper Zero helps maintain cycle consistency, Mint provides additional utility and support value, and Adler contributes reliable damage output. It is not as explosive as the premium team, but it still allows Fadia to function properly as a defensive support who enhances her teammates while keeping the team stable in longer fights. Fadia's awakening effects and resonant effects basically take everything she already does well and push it into overdrive in Neverness to Everness. Once unlocked, they significantly strengthen her ability to keep teammates alive while also amplifying the team's overall damage output, turning her from a strong support into a near core-defining unit in optimized setups. Her damage redirection becomes safer and more consistent, her survivability tools scale harder, and her synergy with Esper cycles becomes even more impactful, letting her enable much higher burst windows for her allies. The downside is that these effects sit at a high investment level, meaning players will need a lot of resources and luck to fully unlock her potential, which makes her true endgame performance something not everyone will realistically experience. Fadia's awakening effects completely push her identity as a damage-absorbing support into something much more extreme in Neverness to Everness. Each upgrade builds on her core loop of redirecting damage, scaling her survivability, and converting pressure into offensive value, making her noticeably stronger the more awakenings she unlocks. The first major effect, Apostate, increases her damage redirect ratio up to 75%. This is a huge consistency boost for her core mechanic, since it means a much larger portion of incoming damage gets funneled through her kit instead of her teammates, letting her control fights far more reliably. Next is Instinct, which is one of her most impactful upgrades. It massively improves destructive experience by raising its damage ratio to 600% and increasing its cap to 25% of Fadia's maximum HP. On top of that, it adds a delayed burst effect when the debuff ends, dealing extra damage based on the difference between the cap and the damage already taken, which makes her setup window far more lethal. Cursor of Blessings then focuses on raw stats, increasing Fadia's base maximum HP by 30% during combat. This synergizes directly with her redirection, healing, and scaling effects, making her much harder to take down while also improving every mechanic tied to her HP pool. After that comes Breaker of Taboos, which significantly boosts her healing while in Lilith's state. If her lost HP meets or exceeds the destructive threshold, her healing scales even higher, making her extremely difficult to finish off once she enters her empowered state. Survivor of Death enhances her offensive potential inside Lilith's state by granting a 50% critical rate increase. While she is not primarily a critical-based character, this still adds a noticeable spike in her burst damage during ultimate windows. Bringer of Love and Death expands her skill, Existence, allowing destructive experience to affect up to 10 enemies at once. This turns her into a much stronger area control support, especially in multi-target encounters where her damage reflection mechanics can scale across an entire group. At the Resonance level, the Free Awakening effect, the Disrespecting Saint, increases the skill level of Agony to Euphoria, Existence, and Wordless Rejection by 1, giving her a direct overall power boost across her entire kit. The Six Awakening effect, the Unified Saint, provides a team-wide buff that increases all allies' attack by 10% as long as Fadia is in the active party. This turns her into not just a defensive anchor, but also a consistent offensive amplifier for the entire team. When it comes to unlocking priority, Instinct should always be first because it dramatically improves her core damage conversion mechanic. After that, Bringer of Love and Death comes next since it scales her effectiveness in multi-target fights and amplifies her core debuff value. Apostate follows closely behind, giving her more consistent and reliable damage redirection, which is essential for her identity. Then, Cursor of Blessings strengthens her overall HP scaling, feeding directly into all of her defensive mechanics. Breaker of Taboos is next, as it significantly improves her survivability and sustain during Lilith's state, making her much harder to shut down once she transforms. Finally, Survivor of Death is usually taken last since the critical rate boost is more situational compared to her other upgrades, even though it can still provide strong burst potential in optimal setups. The video ends here. See you in another video. Don't forget to subscribe.